Number 5. The Mediterranean Sky. The Mediterranean Sky has come a long way from her days as a cruise liner to its current resting place in Elefsina, Greece. Although it's one of the most well-known shipwrecks in the country, its appearance has been quite unsettling over the past 20 years. It was created in 1953 by Vickers Shipbuilding and Engineering of Barrow-in-Furness in the UK and was first known as the City of York. It traveled all over the place from London to the port of Beira in Mozambique, alongside her 3 sister ships, the City of Port Elizabeth, City of Durban, and City of Exeter. It once took the cruise liner only 15 days to travel from London to Cape Town. In 1971, she and her 3 sister ships were purchased by the Greek cruise company called the Karageorgis Lines. This was when the vessel was renamed the Mediterranean Sky, and she was then transformed into a passenger ferry along with the City of Exeter. The 541-foot-long ship offered numerous modern conveniences for the time, including air conditioning, plush accommodations, 2 swimming pools, chic bars, and polished oak decks. It could impressively carry up to 470 cars and roughly 1,000 passengers. Mediterranean Sky was also the first cruise ship to travel the now famous Patras-Venice route, and during its heyday, the wealth and elite people of the 1970s would rent out the ship for winter cruises. In August 1996, she made her final journey from Patras to Brindisi. The ship stayed decommissioned at the former port of Patras as a result of the significant financial difficulties the ship owner experienced between 1996 and February 1999. The Patras Port Authority paid for the ship's relocation to Elefsina in 2002, and on November 26th of that year, the now-abandoned Mediterranean Sky was purposefully beached after being hauled into shallow water. Because of the company's debts, the ship stayed there, utterly deserted. But in January of 2003, Mediterranean Sky tilted gradually before sinking and capsizing. To this day, the partially submerged wreck can be easily seen from the shore. It was decided in 2009 that the ship, as well as 17 other shipwrecks in the Gulf of Elefsina, would finally be removed. However, that never happened, and the vessel's been sitting there rusting in disgrace for the past 18 years. In 2017, the graffiti group known as One Up covered about half of the ship's exposed side with the word One Up. As of 2022, Google Earth can still see the wreckage. The area isn't maintained very well, and there's trash littering the roadside, but visitors may park close to the ship and walk quite a distance to the coast in order to get a better view of the Mediterranean Sky's remains. Number 4. Costa Concordia. On January 13, 2012, the Costa Concordia capsized in extremely shallow water off the coast of an Italian island. Investigators are still trying to figure out why the extravagant cruise liner was sailing so close to the shoreline in the first place. The preventable disaster claimed the lives of 32 passengers and left dozens of others with significant injuries. In the lawsuit that followed, the prosecution offered a story-worthy defense, stating that the married ship captain sailed so near to the island because he wanted to impress a much younger Moldovan dancer that he was having an affair with. However, according to Schettino himself, he'd steered the ship so close to the shore because he wanted to salute passing sailors and also give his passengers a good view. But the Italian courts determined that the captain, 4 crew members, and 1 representative of the ship's corporation, Costa Crociere, were responsible for the accident and delayed a hasty evacuation. A ship malfunction or unpredictable weather were not to blame for the crash. Instead, a chain of human blunders was the only reason for the tragic event. It was originally meant to travel on a 7-day cruise, taking its passengers from Civitavecchia to Savona. The Costa Concordia, however, ran aground on the Skull Rocks Reef after straying from its intended course to approach the island of Giglio. This action put 4,229 people at risk, mostly because the impact allowed water to flow into the vessel. The ship lost power as a result, drifting until it capsized and sank off the coast. At his trial, Captain Schettino blamed crewmember Jacob Rusli Bin for the shipwreck, claiming that he misunderstood his instructions and failed to respond quickly enough to prevent the ship from crashing. But according to testimony from an Italian Navy admiral in the court, the accident would have occurred regardless of Jacob's delay in carrying out the captain's orders. The crew started to flee the ship a little over an hour after it ran aground. However, the investigation made note of several passenger statements who claimed not to have heard the alarm that would have signaled them to head toward the lifeboats. The Concordia was listing so heavily to the right that it was nearly impossible to step into the lifeboats, let alone lower them to one side, which only further complicated the evacuation. The crew's improper anchor drop made matters even worse, drastically decreasing their ability to turn the ship. The captain, who was allegedly caught up in the chaos, managed to reach a lifeboat before anybody else. As he was making his escape, a Coast Guard on the phone ordered him to get back on the boat and assist with the rescue of his passengers. Schettino defended himself by saying that because the ship was leaning so far to the right, he fell into the lifeboat. However, his statement was later proven to be false. By the end of his trial in 2015, he was found guilty of manslaughter, abandoning his ship before his crew and passengers were evacuated, as well as lying to authorities. As a result, he received a 16-year prison sentence because they delayed rescue efforts and downplayed the accident by attributing it to a blackout. Jacob Rusli-Bin and Roberto Ferrarini, the ship's crisis coordinator, were found guilty as well. Number 3. The MS World Discoverer. The stranded wreck of the German-built Liberian cruise liner MS World Discoverer rusts away in an isolated harbor in the Solomon Islands. It was constructed in 1974 and diligently served several owners for over 25 years. But in April of 2000, the ship ran aground on an undiscovered reef formation in the Pacific Ocean. It resulted in a power failure that left the vessel adrift until it crashed and sank off the coast of the Solomon Islands. When it was initially sold to the Danish company Biwa Cruises in 1974, the ship was known as the Biwa Discoverer. In 1976, Adventure Cruises Inc. purchased the vessel, and it was then registered in Singapore. It took the name World Discoverer while it was part of Adventure Cruises. Under this new ownership, she became a long-term charter to the company Society Expeditions. She was then re-registered in Liberia in 1990, and 6 years later she underwent renovations in order to bring her up to date. A recurring schedule guided the MS World Discoverer's operations. Every year from November to February, she traveled throughout the southern hemisphere, stopping in Chile, Argentina, Antarctica, and the Falkland Islands. Between March and May, as well as August to October, she explored the islands of the South Pacific, while June to August were spent in Alaska along the Russian border in the Bering Sea. On average, 2 to 3 shore expeditions were conducted each day by geologists, historians, marine biologists, and naturalists. In addition to a lecture hall and an observation lounge, the ship had a library, a modest fitness facility, a medical center with a practicing doctor, and a sun deck with a built-in swimming pool. On about 4 p.m. on April 30, 2000, the MS World Discoverer encountered an unexpected coral reef while sailing through the Sandfly Passage in the Solomon Islands. The ship was damaged in the collision, which prompted the captain to send a distress signal to Honiara, the country's capital. Everyone on board was saved by a passenger ferry that was sent to the vessel's location. Then, in order to prevent her from entirely submerging, her captain brought her to Roderick Bay and grounded her there. Despite an effort at salvage, the ship was deemed a constructive total loss because of the ongoing civil war. The ship is still there today and has since turned into a sort of tourist attraction. The MS World Discoverer had already been looted by natives during the Solomon Islands Civil War, according to every salvage firm who attempted to recover the ship's valuables. Tidal action has further increased the structure's corrosion and surface rusting. This vessel will likely stay where it's at for a very long time, until it slowly disintegrates into the water. Number 2. The SS United States. The heyday of ocean liners is long gone, and we're now in the age of enormous cruise ships. The RMS Queen Mary and America's flagship, the SS United States, are 2 immobile ships in the U.S. that serve as relics of a time when transatlantic luxury travel was comparable to that of the Titanic. The RMS Queen Mary is now a hotel and tourist destination in California. However, it's currently closed for restoration. On the Delaware River in Philadelphia, the USS United States rusts away. But the ship is still being preserved in order to rehabilitate it and turn it back into a proud American icon. The SS United States was built between the years of 1950 and 1951, and to this day, it remains the biggest ocean liner ever built solely in the US. She was created for United States lines and now holds the record for crossing the Atlantic in the shortest amount of time in each direction. Ever since her maiden voyage, the USS United States has managed to hold the record for the fastest transatlantic speed. She was originally designed to be able to transform into a troop ship, just in case the Navy ever needed her during the war. However, she managed to operate a continuous transatlantic passenger service up until 1969, never being called into battle. A new age dawned when the SS United States was laid to rest, and by the 1970s, transatlantic passenger aircraft had replaced the older ocean liners. Since then, she's been sold multiple times, with each new owner unable to earn a profit. The RMS Queen Mary II is the only ocean liner still operating today. The bulk of ocean liners have long since been retired, making her the last one still in service worldwide. The SS United States fittings were ultimately auctioned off, and asbestos and other hazardous trash were removed from the vessel. She was fully stripped by 1994, and about 2 years later, she was hauled to Philadelphia's Pier 82, where she's remained abandoned ever since. At number 1, the MV Lubov Orlova. Since January 2013, a Russian cruise ship has been drifting in the North Atlantic after severing its tow rope while being transported from Canada to a Dominican Republic scrapyard. The vessel had been a Maria Yermolova-class cruise ship that was ice-strengthened in Yugoslavia, and it was mostly utilized for trips to the Antarctic. Since the ship is unmanned but still afloat, the MV Lubov Orlova is one of several ghost ships whose current locations are unknown. Leonid Brezhnev, a Soviet leader, commissioned the construction of the Lubov Orlova in 1976 as part of a fleet of 8 sister ships in order to prepare a port in Yugoslavia. The Russian actress Lubov Orlova is the inspiration for the vessel's name. The Far East Shipping Company, which originally had ownership of the Orlova, used it to transport people around the Soviet Union's eastern coast, mostly in the Vladivostok area. The elderly ship nicknamed Lubov Orlova was assigned to haul freight in the late 1990s, and she continued to do this for 2 years in a row, transporting second-hand vehicles from Japan. Marine Expeditions chartered the vessel for voyages to the Antarctic Peninsula in 2000 after it had been renovated the year before. However, issues apparently began in 2006, when it had to be towed back to shore after running aground in Antarctica. Every tour lasted 8 to 12 days, and during the off-season, the ship team was responsible for keeping her up to date with repairs. Specialists closely monitored the vessel's technical condition to ensure that passengers cruised safely. In St. John's Harbor in Newfoundland, Lubov Orlova was seized in 2010 after a haulage contractor filed a lawsuit against the owners for $250,000 in unpaid costs. Before being sold to Caribbean purchasers in February of 2012, the ship was anchored for more than 2 years. The vessel was then designated to be towed to a scrapyard in the Dominican Republic because its condition was only getting worse. However, on the trip there, the tow line connecting the tugboat snapped, leaving the ship dangling in the middle of the ocean. Transport Canada deployed the supply ship Atlantic Hawk to secure Lubov Orlova because they were worried about the risk to nearby oil and gas operations. The tug team made several attempts to catch the ship, but none of them were successful. A few days later, on January 27, 2013, the Canadian Coast Guard issued an order to the tug ship's captain, instructing him to throw a liner and return to St. John's due to the sea's dangerous conditions. It was believed that the Lubov Orlova sank after that, but in February of 2013, the U.S. National Geospatial Intelligence Agency discovered a ship 435 miles off the coast of Ireland. The Irish Coast Guard used AIS tracking and radar in order to try and locate the missing vessel, but all of their attempts proved unsuccessful. Apparently, this Russian ghost ship has been seen by a lot of people. In 2014, rumors spread that the Lubov Orlova was slowly traveling in the direction of Britain. Then in 2017, signals that allegedly originated from Lubov Orlova were picked up and recorded from 700 miles off the coast of Cary, Washington. However, in more recent years, there's been no reported sightings of the lost vessel. Which of these abandoned cruise ships interested you the most? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.